welcome to what I hope is the first of many music production tutorial videos. I'm hoping to make a series of short clips detailing some ideas around how to make writing music a bit easier, some tips on sound design, some tips on mixing. But first of all, we're going to start with a fundamental practice for beginners, intermediate, professionals alike, and that is a template, starting from a template. Any DAW that you have will have the function to set up a template. For me, I just go new from template. Don't want to close, obviously, because I'm recording the audio here, but I just open up a new template. This is my 2021 template, so I'm going to talk you through what we've got going on here. So the first channel is a reference track. That is the track that I want to compare my work to. It really does depend, obviously, what I'm doing and what I'm writing, but using a reference track, in my opinion, is essential because it gives you an idea of cadence, of timbre, of tone, and helps you to build better tracks if you can A/B what you're writing versus what you want to write. The next channel is the last bounce. So once I start the mixing process, I always have the last bounce. In fact, I will just start duplicating this as I go through bounces, adding each individual bounce so I can see the progressions and follow the steps of how I am progressing, or if things need changing. It's really handy to have all of those bounces. The next channel is a bus, and this is my bass bus, and so this is automatically set up so that I can just come into Serum. I religiously use Serum. It's like probably one of the only synths I use. Not strictly, but I do use Serum a lot, and so I've got an instance of Serum set up. If you look on the left hand side, you can see we've got the synthesizer, I've got gain plugin, I've got channel plugin, EQ, sorry, I've got compressor, and I've got a saturator, and that is standard. And what I'll do is I'll open up Serum and start to play around, and once I've got what the parts I want, I can then copy or duplicate that track and open up another instance of Serum that is automatically routed through the bass bus and out through to the aux master, which we'll come on to. I've then got a drum group set up where I've got a kick plugin set up automatically, and I've got a drum machine set up automatically. So all I need to do, whether or not it's actually going to work because I'm recording and I'm screen grabbing and my computer is struggling somewhat to cope, which is completely bizarre considering the spec on it. Again, I've got on both of those, I've got a gain plugin, an EQ, a compressor, a saturator, and I've got a tube EQ on the kick. I haven't got that or the saturator on the Ultra Beat drum machine, but it does depend on what I'm doing with drums. The kicks I tend to heavily saturate, the other individual drum parts not so much, so it really does depend. It's also worth noting that I've already got buses set up. So bus 10 is a parallel drum compressor, bus 11 is a large sounding drum reverb, bus 12 is a short, tight bus reverb, and then bus 64 is the side chain for the kick. Again, all of this is all set up, so I don't have to spend time going through each individual part, each individual track, and setting all of these settings. It's plug and play. And once I've written my drum parts on the Ultra Beat, I then duplicate each channel, break it down by name, and then obviously clear the parts because it comes dragged from the drum machine as a whole sample patch, and I actually want to break each individual drum hit, snare, hi-hat, conga, whatever. I want them all broken up and worked on and processed individually. So that's what we do. I've then got a pad bus, which again has got an instance of Serum set up, again with gain, with EQ, with compression, all automatically there ready to run. And I've got bus routings now for parallel compression for the pads and reverb for the pads. I've then got mid-frequency sounds. It's also, I need to excuse me, I also need to point out that each bus has a an EQ and an ozone 9, which is obviously multi-channel compression, limiting, imager, etc. It's my kind of final processing for each bus. The drum bus has got it, the bass bus has got it. Again, it's all set up, and so then I have a mid-frequency sound. I have a mid-frequency sound bus that I will sort of roll off around 200 hertz and try and keep the sounds between 200 and say 2K in that bus. So effects and hits and, you know, parts that aren't synths, aren't drums and aren't bass, anything in that mid-frequency goes into this plugin. And then it's the same for the high-frequency sounds. Any high frequency sounds above sort of 2K will go into this. All my arpeggiators, anyone that knows my music knows I love those kind of like plucky high end sounds, those sort of celestial angelic kind of frequencies, and so that gets grouped together. So I've got control of the bass in one bus, the drums in another bus, the pads in another bus, and then the mid frequency sounds on their own, and then the high frequency sounds on their own, and they're all processed. Each bus goes then to an auxiliary master, and so I want to talk about this. The auxiliary master, first of all, runs into a multimeter, so I can mix the sort of finished signal from the buses before it then goes to the main output, so I can get my mix nice and tight. I then also will have the FF Pro Q3 set up exactly like this, rolled off at 25 hertz, so we get no low end at all, no frequencies that most speaker systems can't handle coming through. And then we also have the reference track routed into this plugin, so that we have them both my track and the reference track playing together, and we can see the comparison between the two. Now, obviously, if I'd known that this was going to cause me problems, I would have loaded up stuff and played around and given you an example. What I might try and do in a moment is load up a track I'm working on at the moment so that we can show that in action. It may require some jiggling about and some re-editing. The final thing in the chain is my ozone, and this is done. All I'm doing here is putting a limiter on it, reducing the ceiling bar to minus 0.1 decibels, and then I can hear, toggling on and off, what the pre-master sounds like, and then what a prototype master might sound like with the limiter on. The limiter will make a difference. I always check my mixes, limiter on, limiter off, and just see what the limiter's doing and just see how it's affecting things. Obviously, I send my tracks off to be mastered by either Mark at dieselmastering, big up Mark, or John Doe, big up John. It really does depend on what style of music we're doing, but it's just handy, I think, to have the limiter capability, but not just running it, slamming it all the time. So yeah, let's see if I can load up a different project and talk about that while I'm on the hock here. 2 ticks. Okay, so here we are in my latest project. I've had to mute the outgoing audio. Hopefully this all works, but you'll be able to see what I mean here. So we have got the reference at the top, and we've got the original track that I'm working on a remix for, and we've then got the last 3 bounces here. And so as you can see, first channels, we've got the bass bus. We've got all these different bass parts all grouped together, all running and routed through the bass bus, through the signal processing, and to the aux master, which at the moment is muted, but as you can see, that's how it's working. We then drop down and we've got the drum bus, and so we've got all the different drum parts, kick, roll kick, a different kind of kick, cabassa, flange hat, etc. They're all grouped in together, so they're all individually broken up and all processed separately and to a different degrees, depending on what I want it to sound like. Pad bus, we've only got one part on this, and it's a synth part in the center of the track. Mid-frequency sounds of quite a few of these, as you can see, spaced right out, but all grouped together. And then finally, we've got the high frequency sounds, which is mostly like delay hits and a few other noises. There aren't any, after saying there's no angelic or like celestial arps in this track, 'cause it's quite of a banger. It's quite dark. It's quite heavy, so they didn't really fit in. But that's how it's routed. And then obviously we go to the aux master. We have the multimeter here that I'm able to then monitor my mix prior to the limiting, which is really, 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 really important. We then go, as I say, through the F Pro Q3, and what you can see here is that the red line is my reference track. And then the lower line is my track reference for this remix. Sorry, my brain is a bit slow. The reason why it's lower is because it's being routed prior to going through the limiter. If we swap it round, you should notice it's excuse me. What it's doing is it's not wanting to open up the ozone because there's too much stuff going on. So let's just see if I can make it a bit easier, get it to work. Yeah, the reason why the signal here is lower is simply a matter of the fact that this isn't limited and the reference is a mastered track. But if you look at the profile of the sounds and how they are just, yes, lower volume than each other, but very, very, very close to having all the frequencies filled. So yeah, that is super important, and that's what I wanted to show here. But yeah, so there we are. That's my take on templates and why it's really important to get your own template up and running. There's loads of different ways of doing it. This is just how I do it. There's no right or wrong, but you'll find if you're struggling to get tracks off the ground, or you're finding that you're taking a long time like laying all of this out, do it once, save it as a template, and then start cracking on. And what you'll do is you'll refine the template over time, and you'll get it sort of tweaked and think, oh no, I need to add that, and oh, that I don't need that anymore. And you know, it's all personal taste, but you'll find that you'll throw things together a lot quicker. And I don't mean that in a negative or derogatory way, throwing it together. I mean, you'll literally be able to create tunes much, much quicker if everything's at your fingertips and you don't have to go through a laborious process of you know, adding plugins and doing buses and adding tracks. You know, it's all there. All the routing is done. You've just got to tweak it in the mix. Makes life a lot easier. So hope that's been useful. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me see your templates if you're up for sharing them. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video.